That's absolutely fine. Obviously, it
It's
is a lunch
absolutely
and
fine.
learn.
If people want to eat their lunches, that's what the title says. Let's follow the rules, eh? There you go, Charlotte.
So, yes. So, again, hi everyone. My name's Charlotte. I am the engagement officer for Durham Enable. Um, just a couple of house rules for the session today. So, if we can keep mics off unless interacting with speakers or hosts, there is going to be time at the end after the 30-minute session delivered by Carole for a Q&A. There is a button if you can see it. So, if you do have any questions, please just click the Q&A, type your question, and they will be answered at the end.
I'm sorry, Charlotte. I
I know
forgot I'm
that's
doing this
fine.
for you. I'm all right for me. I'm just not good for other people.
It will be recorded. So again, if you'd prefer to keep your camera off, that's absolutely fine. It's just so we can kind of keep it on record and it can be shared for future use. And again, if you do need any captions, if you click on your more, which looks like three little dots, then go down to language and speech and you can turn on live captions. So that'll describe and we'll subscribe for you during the session.
Can I just input there that I have been at events where we've had live captions where they didn't necessarily represent what the speaker said. If they're funny by accident, I'm quite funny sometimes. You're allowed to laugh at my jokes, but you're also allowed to laugh at the captions if they come up inappropriately. A couple of very serious people had rude words over their heads at this conference Megan and I attended, and it was a bit bizarre for the audience. So don't worry. We haven't written them. It's whatever the AI interprets the nonsense I'm speaking into.
Yeah. Again, feel free to eat soup, doodle, stretch, stim, walk throughout the whole entire session. Obviously, it is a safe space and an open space where we want everyone to feel comfortable and welcome to attend today and attend future events. And again, please be kind. As I said, it's a safe space, and we want to kind of make everyone feel as welcome as possible throughout this experience and future experiences. I'm just going to kind of quickly touch on my role. So my role is working with employers to really look at our business offer, and again, that includes educating and making employers feel confident and really want to work with Durham Enable in terms of supported employment, working interviews, and again we can do that through working with the fantastic Carole who's going to tell you all about it, as well as looking at how we can match specifically our job seekers to potential recruitment or carved roles. The fabulous Megan is going to put some links in the chat for our March 6th Inclusive Employer Network event. We would love to see some familiar faces there and new faces, so please follow the link. We also have a quarterly business newsletter which shares some fantastic success stories from our job seekers. It also shares opportunities to do some extra work with us and can also support you with kind of maybe those one-to-one conversations about how can my business work with Durham Enable? What does that look like? And again, it's just the beginning of that relationship and taking that first step that we're really looking for. But that's me for now, and yeah, Carole, take it away.
Good afternoon, just about. I am Carole. I'm sure a few of you have been to my sessions before. Don't worry, this is not an interactive session. I am not going to make you do anything apart from listen. I am very happy to take questions. Megan is going to sit in the chat. If people have comments or suggestions, she'll either prod me to say, let's answer this one because it's relevant, or we will return back to them at the end of the session. As Charlotte said, I'm intending to speak for about 30 minutes and then at the end to take some questions if people have any. If not, we'll just tell you some more about how brilliant the work with Durham Enable is. Okay, my role is the in-work support and training officer. I have a small caseload, mostly neurodivergent people, but the main part of the work that I do is educating people about the neurodiversity paradigm, the different way of thinking about people who think differently, and enabling individuals to find the right job match and enabling employers to find the right job match. The presentation today will take us through a very simple format that we've designed as Durham Enable that just gives us an overarching, viewpoint about how not hard it is. People are a little bit scared and a little bit nervous. Some people have tried to do this kind of work in the past and maybe it hasn't worked so well. We have found a way of doing it which is incredibly successful. We work on the basis that anyone can work. They just need to have the right support, to find the right job match, and to have the right employer. Our supported employment service enables people who've possibly never considered themselves as workers to become workers, but is also supporting people who do see themselves in that way get accepted and supported in the way that helps them to be their very best. We do this by helping them to become seen, then supported. This in turn makes them safe, which enables success. I call it the 4 S's. And actually, I came up with it by accident entirely. I was just talking through what we do as we started to write a short course for the Durham County Council online learning system for our colleagues. And when the ladies had written down everything I said, it turned out I'd created this. Okay, so being seen and supported are the foundations for a good employment relationship. Not everybody feels safe at work. Not everybody feels safe in their home life. Many neurodivergent individuals find it very challenging to achieve anything unless the correct foundations are in place for them. And that's particularly true at work. We need to look at what each individual feels makes them safe and put in the structures to ensure that that's there throughout the whole of their employment life. One way that people are seen is to be diagnosed. Most people are looking for a diagnosis for clarity, for understanding of who they are. I myself gained my autism diagnosis at the grand old age of 48. I'm going to be 51 this April, and actually it was life-changing for me. It allowed me to build on the career that I'd already developed working with neurodivergent people, but to see myself better. It enabled me to understand that I was not a broken person who just was a bit odd or a little bit weird, as people tell me constantly. I was actually a different thinker. However, the content of the diagnosis was completely useless. It didn't help me at all. The status of being recognised formally was what benefited me and what has enabled me to use that as currency. My diagnosis literally just told me the things that the medical profession think are wrong with me, that I have difficulties in social interaction, social communication, and social imagination. But actually, academic research is suggesting that this form of diagnosis is racist, sexist, and classist. It is looking for little white boys. And people like me are missed out on a regular basis. It's this different understanding of autism that is leading to the fact that so many more people are standing up and identifying themselves, which has also led to a ridiculous wait in the diagnostic process. So actually, getting a diagnosis of autism isn't easy. Some people are now waiting nearly a decade. 8 years is the longest I've heard people have been told that they're waiting. Although a lot of the slides here talk about autism, and that is, I suppose, the main content, much of what I'm saying relates to other neurodivergences. ADHD in particular is very similar, although their diagnostic criteria are a lot more explicit and we can build reasonable adjustments upon that, as we can for things like dyslexia. So being diagnosed as an autistic person is all right, but it won't necessarily give us the opportunity for people to properly be seen as the individual that they are. What we can see is how they fit into, excuse me, a framework. Therefore, many people are actually taking great solace from being recognized. They know that they're a different person. I haven't met a lot of people who aren't autistic who think they are and who want to go for a diagnosis. It doesn't appear to be. Oh, hello, is that Paula? Do you want to speak? Are you sure? Okay. If you, there's it with adults going for diagnosis, it tends to be people who see something properly in themselves that relates, that they find a person who is like them, possibly for the first time, or that they relate very much to somebody that they've experienced. I find quite often when I run training courses, the people recognize themselves for the first time in the way that I talk about autism or I talk about other neurodivergences. People recognize people in their family, or people start to step forward to tell me about the fact their children are going through the process and that they hadn't recognized anything different about their children. And did that mean that they're possibly autistic themselves? They ask us when we started to notice the difference about our children. And I, for one, didn't, because I created a mini me in boy version, blonde boy version. So actually, being recognized is very powerful. Many people understand themselves, and we can use that recognition in order to help employers understand who that person is. The key is being welcomed, is being wanted, is being supported in the way that you need. This morning, I had a crisis. My slides had been Durham enabled in the new format. And as an autistic person, I was very close to distress. I opened them and they didn't look like my slides anymore because they needed to be changed. But there were a couple of things that I couldn't deal with because they were so different. I have the support of a team who see me and who welcomed me and who actually celebrated with me when I got the diagnosis that's enabled me to understand myself so well. That team jumped into action, tinted the slides to make them less white. Thank you, Kevin. Sorted out the content to ensure that it felt like my work and I was able to talk to it. Thank you, Megan. And reassured me emotionally in a way that didn't make me feel stupid for being a little bit distressed about coloured backgrounds. It's not a big thing really to anybody else, but to me and the way that I need to work, it is. So actually, an hour before this presentation, I started to feel ready for it. But fundamentally, in my organisation, I am welcomed and nurtured, and if it's not too funny, enabled. That's what we want for everyone else as well. Assessment can provide the knowledge of understanding an individual. If you're in a large organisation, you can possibly go to occupational health and they will give you quite a medical diagnosis. Sometimes it's brilliant and it's very clear and logical. But quite often, because it's so medicalised for neurodivergent individuals, it's more challenging because not many of us consider our neurodivergence to be a health issue. Therefore, an alternative kind of work-related assessment is valid. Durham Enable undertake that. In fact, part of the work that I do is helping people understand themselves by using this model. Be careful, this is a big slide with a lot of content. You don't have to read it all. Charlotte was sending the slides around afterwards. Yeah, so you can take your time to have a look at it then. Compared with the diagnostic criteria that we just looked at, this is a lot more detailed. This is a discursive tool that I use to talk to people. And actually, something happens when one autistic person talks to another autistic person that even if they don't like talking out loud, quite often they will talk to me when they won't talk to other people. We've been able in Durham Enable, that sounds weird, to use that as a tool. I'll come in and I'll support a job coach to talk to an autistic customer. help them to be able to communicate out loud. And when they're comfortable and safe with their job coach, I peel off and leave everybody to do the hardest part of the work that I consider. I use this model to talk about language, to talk about social awareness, to talk about that obsessive black and white version of reality and how that looks for individuals. How do we take information? Are we readers? Are we listeners? Are we drawers? Do we process in 3D imagery? Is there anything going on in our heads? Do we have any images at all? Those kinds of pieces of information can help us structure adjustments. What happens with your sensory processing? Do you become overwhelmed by too much light? Will you not notice if you need to have lunch? Do you need a structured day in order that you can function properly? Which takes us into the repetitive behaviors column. Some people need to have repetition. Some people need to have task repetition. Some people need the same structure to every day. Some people need a weekly structure. Some people, like me, like repetitive physical activities but can't cope with repetitive work activities. Being seen allows us to understand all of these little idiosyncrasies, I can't say that word today, little individual facts about people, to build a picture up that our difficulties in social imagination, difficulties in social communication, and difficulties in social interaction just doesn't cover. Finally, you've got the neuromotor differences, the physical differences in the way that neurodivergent and autistic people function. What you can also do is contact Access to Work and get an assessment, an in-work assessment from Access to Work from a professional in the field related to the disability or neurodivergence of the new employee. If you apply at the time that you have been offered your job, or if as an employer you support the individual to apply at the point you offer them their job, Access to Work will kick in quickly. It's a 3-tiered system where if you apply when you get the notification you've got the job, you get seen the last I heard someone was communicated with within 2 weeks. If you wait until you start the job and communicate with Access to Work and apply within the first 6 weeks, then you'll get a call. Not quite as quickly, but almost as quickly. I think we're looking at about a month for that at the moment. These are general and they are not the parameters of Access to Work. At the moment, if you apply after 6 weeks, people are waiting months for equipment and for in-work assessments. So my advice to you is if you want Access to Work for new employees, try to make it part of your onboarding process to enable the starting day to be a really good day when people's needs can be met and we can fulfill this seen section. For many people, the recognition of their self can be the difference between finding out that they're not broken, they're not that, well, I am quite weird, but we're not. If the world is full of ducks who can fly and float on top of the water, swim under the water and walk on land, then that wasn't something that I could do. I looked quite awkward on land in this metaphor. But if I was actually a different kind of bird, then I wouldn't be broken. So in metaphorical terms, what happened to me when I gained my diagnosis and recognized myself fully, I realized I wasn't a broken duck. I was actually a brilliant penguin who could swim at 40 miles an hour under the sea. You just need to give me the right conditions and recognize who I am for it to work. So you're welcomed, you're assessed. Then we move into job matching. Getting the right job is key. This is the right job for me. It will probably not be the right job for anybody else. The environment matters. Said that. Carving the job, looking at something that already exists and adapting it to meet the need based on what you've recognized by seeing the person. Adapt. Adapt whatever needs to be adapted to find success. Craft and change things that already exist. Create a job description that fits the tasks this person is going to be doing exceptionally well rather than a generalized job description that's got a little bit of everything in, and we know nobody ever works fully to their job descriptions. Why do we pretend? If you can craft from what already exists, that's brilliant. But what we can also do is carve from your organization by identifying what the purpose is of the organization and maybe helping you to look at it differently with this person you've seen in it in order to support them into the proper goals. Redesign, innovate, create something new. We can help you. So the reason we need to do that is because neurodivergent people tend to have a spiky profile. We're not generalists. We'll be exceptional at some things and very much not good at others. I don't like to show people the things that I'm not good at. So I tend to look like a very high performer. That leads people into the myth that some people are high functioning autistic and some people are low functioning autistic. It's a myth. Some people are high masking autistic, and we're pretending that the bottom of our spiky profile doesn't exist because it's nobody else's business. Other people can't help but demonstrate the things that they're not very good at. That does not mean that they're not exceptional, something that we can't see. The functionality is a misnomer that sits within the medical diagnosis world, and it isn't helpful. It means that people who look like they're high performing maybe don't get their needs met in areas where they're not. And it means we have low expectations for people who we think are low functioning and don't give them aspirations for where they could possibly be in life. And we know in Durham and Able that quite often our customers are hiding their skills because they don't feel confident enough to demonstrate them because they've been living as a disabled person in Western society, and it's a hard place to be. So you're welcomed, you're assessed, and you're job matched. Then we look at having the correct training in the environment to ensure that people understand you. Who needs to know about you? Who needs to know about your disability so that they can understand, so we can create social valorization, so people don't feel uncomfortable about the elephant in the room that nobody talks about, the differences that people bring. Some of them are positive and people are willing to talk about them. Others we just don't talk about. It seems to fit this model of people don't like saying the word autistic because it's a dirty word or it's uncomfortable or the perspective they have on what the word means isn't quite right. We need to bring people up to speed so that your new employee feels comfortable, feels seen, and then properly supported. And that can be done through negotiation with training right across the council and right across a variety of employers. I'm currently working with the Student Loans Company, with the NHS Business Services Authority, and an awful lot of managers within the County Council, looking to see how we can ensure that we do this and get the right training in the right place. Reasonable adjustments come from being recognised and being seen. They may come from all of those things we've just talked about, but actually they're the helping hand at work to enable us all to have a level playing field and have the same access to opportunities as our colleagues. We need to ensure that everyone has a shared understanding. I've written in words on there, but actually, if some people don't communicate in words, what we need to really ensure is a shared understanding. That could be pictures, that could be negotiation, but it really needs to be recorded in order that if anything slips, anybody forgets, manager moves to a new job, new manager comes into place, the support remains the same, or the support is obvious so we can go back and ensure people are getting it. Some organisations have a disability passport or an in-work list that they use. It's very worthwhile having one. I've mentioned access to work. These are the categories you can draw down funding. The funding is dependent upon the size of your organisation. If you're a large organisation, then you will be probably paying the first £1,000 if any access to work grant. However, if the individual applies during the onboarding process, some of those costs can be waived. So get on with it fast. The travel for access to work is to allow people to get to places that if they weren't disabled they'd be able to get to. It is incredibly useful across County Durham. Our transport system is not friendly for disabled people because it is too unreliable. It's also very challenging to get to places. Do you know, if you wanted to work in Stanhope and you live in Concert, it sounds easy, but actually you're going to Durham on the bus. You're not driving the 20 minutes over the hill. You're driving 2 hours on a ridiculous journey to get there. Therefore, it makes far more sense for Access to Work to pay for a taxi to get you there. It isn't a problem. You are not taking something away from someone else. A lot of people worry that they're not disabled enough, that they don't want to put themselves forward because someone else might need it and they don't want to take it away. Let's not play that game anymore. Our customers, your prospective employees, are very important. They need their needs met so we can fulfill the supported part in order to move ourselves into safe and successful. It is challenging. It's complicated. Sometimes it can depend on the person on the other end of the telephone who calls you. If you're a person who doesn't like talking on the telephone, there's barrier number one, isn't it? The Access to Work system is not for the employer. It is the employee's claim. It is their individual grant. However, in order to ensure that the grant is facilitated correctly, the employer is responsible for signing timesheets or invoices in order to make sure that the system is clear, properly transparent, and people aren't taking advantage of it. I don't know anybody who's taken advantage of it, to be honest. You can get equipment that will belong to the individual, but when they leave, it does fall into the organisation if the organisation has paid for it. Most people are kind, and if it's yours, quite often they'll let you take it with you. The training I've already mentioned could be paid for by Access to Work. They will pay for all sorts of different things, training for the individual, training to go with the equipment that they've been given. If someone gets an in-work assessment, please ensure that any equipment they get comes with training. We've got hundreds of dyslexic people who have got wonderful tech that came with an instruction manual that is not dyslexia friendly. Sometimes people just don't understand that tech isn't automatically easy for people. They think that tech for a dyslexic person would be an instinctive thing to use. I promise it isn't. Equipment and technology without the correct support, whether that's an online session, whether that's a person who comes. When I got my voice activated software, I got a lovely man called Graham who followed me around for 2 days, assessed how I did my job, and then taught me how to use the software in relation to what I did, not in relation to the 600-page instruction manual, which frightened the bejesus out of me. He was friendly, he was calm, and he was patient. And he gave me the skills I needed to do my job. So please make sure that is holistic support we're getting, because there's nothing worse than having asked for help, being given help, and then not being able to utilize it. People are too scared to come back. They think you won't like them because you've not done what you said they were going to do. They've not used the magic equipment that they've been given. For autistic people, looking at a low stimulus, a flexible environment, providing a mentor or a buddy. A mentor tends to be an individual who is maybe in a slightly more senior position in the organisation, who looks to support the individual with their practical work, with the tasks of the job. A buddy is much more of an emotional support, could be anybody. Be somebody else who's autistic in the organisation who feels capable of supporting, could be somebody who's specialised in understanding their autistic colleagues. You can get a support worker through Access to Work who could provide similar support, but quite often a natural support, a person who's already within the organisation, is so much easier, it's cheaper. Just going for lunch once a week is maybe all a person needs in order to help them feel stable and confident and safe. Making sure we communicate in the right way. I am a words person. Ramsey who supervises me, we talk. But Ramsey is well aware that unless he's written stuff down and sent it to me on paper, there's about 5 out of 10 chance that I'll remember any of the specifics. It's not intentional. I just don't have that kind of working memory. What I need is a list to return to all of the time. We can't assume just because someone presents as what we perceive as clever means that they're actually going to be fully cognitively able in all of the different areas. Some of us are visual, some of us are kinesthetic and need to do something to know how to do it. Some of us are auditory and just need to be told once and it's in there forever. It's not me, unless it's song lyrics, in which case I remember ridiculous songs forever. I'm not going to sing. Don't worry. Don't worry. So there you go. Oh, where's it gone, Megan? Thank you. We start off with the foundation, recognizing the individual, recognizing them from their perspective, as well as hopefully adding knowledge to them about themselves. Use that to create support within your organization. If the support is correct and done in the right way, then what you'll find is people feel safe. Once a neurodivergent person feels safe, they're able to ask for help when they need to. They're able to get on with the tasks in front of them. They're able to cope with an awful lot of stuff. And quite often they didn't realize that they could do because they might never have been safe before. If they've come through the education system, there are not many places that we're safe in a classroom. Not many places that we're safe in a playground. Not many places that we're safe in college. We're different. We know we're different. People tell us we're different, but recognizing that and welcoming us for who we are makes us seen, supported, safe. And that leads us to be successful. And a successful employee means a successful business.
Durham Enable, a brighter future for inclusive employment.